All right, guys, I want to start this video out by saying, first and foremost, no matter where you are in your journey, how old you are, it's never too late. You know, most of my audience, I suppose, is probably 30 plus, with it leaning, 35, 40, over 50 like myself, or even guys over 60. I'm here to tell you it does not matter. It's never too late, guys. There's this sort of pervasive, defeatism, nihilism, guys throwing in the towel, guys giving up, and I don't go with that, guys. And I think if you watch my content, you quickly see that. And if you're watching my content, I don't think you're that type of person either. But again, if you're drifting a little bit, you're not sure what your next move is, or, you're sort of, again, a little bit lost, I'm going to speak to that and hopefully give you some, based on my own experience and my own, sort of life, to show you that it's not too late. And, whatever you're trying to achieve, guys, you can get there. You just got to have that self-belief. So I was going to make this video earlier, and I probably should have, sort of, a little bit on my backstory. I'm not going to call it a hero's journey because I don't claim to be anybody's hero, but I think I want, my audience should know who I am, and that way gives them a better idea, some sort of context to the content I am making. So anyways, try and get through this quickly, guys, and not ramble too much. This is an unscripted, just sort of me riffing here. As you can surmise, my name is Garrett. I am 52 years old. I grew up in the Buffalo, Niagara Falls area, right on the Canadian border. Pretty happy childhood, pretty average, middle, maybe lower middle class. Both parents are there. I got one brother. Pretty happy childhood, nothing out of the ordinary, no, emotional issues from childhood. Pretty good, not complaining. But, even as a kid, it's funny, as my dad is a Vietnam era Marine, fought in Vietnam. He was, he had about discipline, but I was, in many things, I was terribly undisciplined as a kid. And that showed in high school. I did the absolute bare minimum, guys. It seemed way too easy for me. I'm not saying that I'm a genius, but high school was a joke. So I did the bare minimum. Well, anyways, after that, the playbook, what you're supposed to do is go to college. So that's what I did. I enrolled in college. I was still 17 when I was in my freshman year. Not that I couldn't handle, sort of the academia, but I was way too immature, and that showed in my academics. I did less than, like I said, I did the same thing as I did in high school. Messed around for about a year and a half and then dropped out. So at that point, guys, I wasn't sitting in my parents' basement. That wasn't an option. As I can say, he said, my old man, that simply wasn't going to fly. No chance. So I was working a few jobs, maybe I think a busboy, kind of bartending, working for the parks department in the town I grew up in. So always doing something, but nothing really to sort of move the needle forward. So at that point, I started to do more bartending. And if you guys are aware of Buffalo at all, Buffalo is a very, especially back then, this is, early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, has a very heavy culture of drinking. It's sort of accepted. And especially back then, it was, what people did. And I fell right into that life, guys. Bartending, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, out forever, drinking. I smoked cigarettes, just this terribly unhealthy lifestyle. And I justified it all as I was making good money. So I'd maybe make $800 to $1,000 a week. And that was mostly cash, guys. So, 40, even knocking on $50,000 a year, not full time, at 21, 2 years old, it's pretty good. I'm like, all right, this, I'll be good. So I didn't really think about my future, or at least not real hard, sort of living in the moment. And that's all well and good, but, it just, there wasn't, I had no sort of future plans. So at this point, I started noticing some health issues, shockingly, because I was smoking cigarettes, drinking like a fish, and not eating terrible. I wasn't great, but it, not eating really, really great. I developed some health issues. I developed an autoimmune disorder in my hands, Raynaud's, and I just always didn't feel good. I always felt feverish, flu-like, tired, joint pain. I just felt like garbage all the time. So around this time, I'd say 21, 22, I started taking 1 bottle of Advil a day. That's 20 pills, guys, times 200 milligrams. So that's around 4,000 milligrams of Advil every single day. This went on for a few years, guys. And at this point, health conditions are getting worse. My body's just falling apart. To the point I'm crying myself to sleep. And I'm not embarrassed to say that because it was the facts. I'd get home, cry myself to sleep, hopefully, pass out, and then, get back into enough shape the next day to sort of wash, rinse, and repeat. And it just, he said this went on for a couple of years. So I'm probably sort of mid-20s at this point. I'm dating a girl. And she convinced me, I don't quite know how, I'm pretty thankful for this, to go to the doctor. Literally upon seeing this doctor who I had never met before, excuse me a moment, he tells me that I think you have Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer. Like, whoa, 25 years old? Cancer? This isn't good. Anyways, guys, I went through a couple biopsy procedures on my neck. They checked my lymph nodes. Both were inconclusive, but thankfully neither was cancer. Extremely thankful for that. But it still wasn't out of the woods. So for the better portion of 3 or 4 months, I was like a pincushion with doctors taking blood from me, testing me for anything from like lupus, Lyme disease, HIV, you name it. They couldn't really come up with a diagnosis, but also thankful to an infectious disease doctor, Canadian guy, really, really liked this guy. He's like, in a nutshell, bud, he said, you have just taxed your immune system so badly that your body is breaking down. So again, at this point, I have even more autoimmune issues, which I have to this day, guys, unfortunately. But that was when I had my epiphany. So I was probably around 26, 7, if I had to look back on it. And I truly had an epiphany. Again, not too late, guys. Life decision. I was like, okay, you got to clean your act up. And let me reverse a little bit there, guys. And I left this part out, which is very, very important. I had progressed from that 2,000 milligrams of Advil a day to 2,000 milligrams of either hydrocodone, Percocet, or Darvocet. That probably went on for 2 to 3 years. Drinking shots almost every night or drinking something every day of the week. I was an addict. Looking back, I never would have used that word. I didn't use drugs. I never really smoked dope. I didn't smoke dope. I didn't do any harder drugs, whether it be sort of cocaine or any of the sort of designer drugs. None of that. So I didn't really consider myself a druggie, but looking back, I was an addict. No question. So fast forward back again after seeing the doctors. I was like, all right, no more. So I rolled my hours back at my job, told my boss, I said, hey, I'm only going to work a few hours at the bar. Re-enrolled in school because, there was no real internet. I couldn't find an online gig or anything like that back in the mid-late-ish 90s. So I went back to school, took out loans, and I busted my ass to get through it. And I did really well and got through that. But here I am now, sort of broke as a joke. I owe the government a ton of money. So I moved from New York to Florida where a buddy was, and I got a job quickly with a car rental agency. It didn't last long. And then I actually started with the company I would retire from about 21 years later. So guys, probably around 30 at this point, 29, 30, and I start this job. And all my buddies they're so far ahead of me. They're 7, 8, 9 years into their careers. And I just felt like I was behind, still angry, still sort of resentful, bitter, just sort of an angry, undisciplined person. I denied this, but I was. So anyways, here we are. So after a couple years in Florida, I moved to Oklahoma City for 6.5 years, back to Florida for 3 years, Houston, Texas for 5.5, and then moving up to Pennsylvania where our company's office was for the last 5.5 years before I retired. I guess it's about a year ago now, but getting back to it's not too late, guys. So I'm 31 years old, and I got to pay back my student loans. Yes, guys, I'm a man and I believe in paying your fucking debts. So that's what I did. I had him sort of garnish my wages for money I didn't have, but I had to make it happen. So I paid those off, and before I ever put a dime into savings, and I was broke, guys, credit card debt, the school loans, I finally was able at about age 34 to start contributing to my 401k, my retirement and savings. This gets back to it's not too late, guys. I started then, and by the time I was 51, I was able to retire, and I'm here in Panama, and money's not really a concern for me. It's never too late, guys. I talked in the last video, this one, about the compounding. And when you're on the bad side of it, it's bad. But when you're on the good side of it, guys, it can be really good. So keep that in mind. But anyways, guys, I knew even in my last, say, decade with the company, it's not that I hated what I did, but I didn't love it. And I was always, as more and more, I see this online, and you see the guys talking about the sort of lifestyle freedom in the, these type of things. I say these computer and these sort of digital options that you have. But I just didn't know how to break free. So I started watching a lot of content, reading the books, consuming. I did so much consuming, but I never really acted on it. I was getting better. After my illnesses, I started taking care of my health, and I was getting better, but I never really went all in, guys. And that brings me to another point. You have to come to a point where you got to push all your chips in, bet on yourself in whatever it is. I don't mean you have to leave your job tomorrow. Some of you guys got wives, kids, houses, mortgages, talked about that in previous videos. But you have to start to develop an exit plan, and it's not too late to do that. It never is. You can do that at any age. So anyways, guys, I had enough of my job. My heart was not in it. I mean, I was just going through the motions, especially the last few years. And I'd worked my way up to a VP position. It's amazing. I said I wasn't exactly killing myself, but I still climbed, and I got there, and I just wasn't happy. It was actually getting worse. Stress, anxiety, and last year I had a point just before the new year last year. I had a breaking point, almost a second epiphany, but I'll call this a breaking point, where I just said, I'm fucking done. I'm fucking done. So I typed up my resignation over sort of the Christmas, took some time off during the Christmas holiday. And on January 3rd, the first day back, I actually had a meeting with the owner, and apparently I was going to get a raise, which is ironic, but it didn't matter. I handed him my resignation. And I was scared shitless, guys. I was like, holy shit, 6-figure salary, company car, profit sharing, health insurance, expense account. Guys, I was doing pretty well, but I just wasn't happy. And I was like, I can't live another day like this. I felt that another day going through that slog, that 9-to-5 grind, was a day wasted. And I was in a position that I could do it. But I still, again, you guys, you got to feel that fear and fight through it. Trust me, I'm not saying it's easy, and you can do this tomorrow. But I am telling you, you can do this. You just have to develop a plan, and you have to be disciplined about it, and you're going to have to make some sacrifices. These people out here peddling this sort of short way out, or get rich quick, or take the easy pill, or push the easy button. It's all bullshit, guys. It takes work. It takes sacrifice. It takes discipline. That's what you're going to have to do. Discipline on your spending, cutting, toxic people out. All these things I've talked about in other videos, guys. But don't give up. Don't give into this, I'm too old, this sort of sunk cost fallacy. I can't change at 50. Even if it's just changing a career, you can do it, guys. I have this video here on how to escape the 9-to-5, and I talk a lot about it because that's where I came from. I can speak to that. And if there is a way out, guys, but you have to first thing you do is have to get your mind right. Don't fucking give in. Don't give up. Don't let these outside forces, and I know there's a lot of them, don't let them weigh down on you. Know that there is a way out. So guys, and that's, I don't, want to get too long-winded here, kind of try and wrap this up. But at 51, I was able to walk out the door and I didn't look back. Every day it gets a little sort of, little less indoctrination and or sort of dogmatic programming. Some days I wonder, I'm like, oh, am I doing enough? Because you're so used to this, get up, drive to the office in traffic, sit through this job, meetings, all this other BS, whatever your job is, every job has some BS, get done, go home, and you just live this life sort of on autopilot and sacrificing your, I don't know what you call them, dreams, your hopes, your purpose. It gets pushed aside. But guys, you can't keep pushing it aside because one day you're going to wake up, at 51 years old and realize, holy fuck, where did the last decade and a half go? That's where I was. And I wasn't going to let it go any longer because I knew, even though I had a late start and I saw these guys, these guys on here ahead of me, I still knew I could do it. I never wavered in my belief at this point. I knew I could break free, guys. And so can you. I guarantee you can do it. You might need a little guidance. You might need some help. You might need some people to talk to. But you can absolutely do it. So guys, I'm going to sort of wrap it up here. Again, I know this was sort of a disjointed video. There wasn't like a main crux other than it's not too fucking late. But do me a favor, guys. If you're still here, I appreciate you always. Do the like, subscribe, comment. I want to know comments, guys. This is going to help me. Where are you at? What's holding you back? What's the stuff that's wearing on your mind, guys? So, and don't stop here. I think this is a great video to watch after this one. It sort of plays off what I talked here. And again, guys, I absolutely appreciate you, in sticking it out this long and kind of getting the backstory on me. Again, drop comments, questions. And remember, guys, live deliberately.